Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our guests and distinguished panelists, guests from all around the world. Welcome to the sessions on Smart Cities in Action, from Vision to Opportunities. I'm very honored to have with me a very distinguished panel of experts, ranging from the governments, the planners and executor, as well as the private sector participants in the smart cities. So here, let me first of all introduce Mr. Cheston Xu. He is a Deputy Director General, Development and Construction Office of Guangzhou Knowledge City. Cheston has had a very interesting career that spans many different functions, from Foreign Affairs Office to even organizing Asian Games, and in his current positions have a front row seat in looking at how a new city, 123 square kilometers city that is being developed in a joint venture between Singapore and the Guangzhou government in a project called the China-Singapore Guangzhou Knowledge City. Second is Dr. Johnny Wong. Dr. Johnny Wong is responsible for leading HDB's or Housing Development Board's efforts in spearheading new, innovative, cost-effective solutions and technologies to create a better living environment and achieve greater sustainability. So in driving Singapore's Smart Nation agenda, HDB is championing the smart urban habitat domain. And Dr. Wong still finds time to co-chair a multi-agency working committee to spearhead these smart town efforts, which aims to leverage smart technologies to make towns and estates more livable, efficient, safe, and sustainable. And he's currently driving the holistic and comprehensive sustainable development framework to guide the development of Punggol Eco-Town. Johnny has thus overseen evolving generations of townships, and I consider him a walking dictionary of how visions, master plans can be translated into reality. Lars Regers is Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer of NXP Semiconductors, one of the largest company in the world. As CTO, Lars is responsible for managing new business activities and R&D in the focus markets of automotive, Industry 4.0, Internet of Things, mobile and connectivity and infrastructure. And before joining NXP, he began his career with Siemens Semiconductor, later Infineon. And since April 2019, he has been a board member of the Committee for Digital Economy, Telecommunications and Media in the German Industry Association. Lars is also on the board of directors of ITS World Congress and a member of the Forbes Technology Council. Of interest to this panel is Lars' involvement in smart cities around the world, including his home city of Hamburg. And what we would like to hear from him is how technology players have participated and can participate in future smart cities. So ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we have assembled a unique panel to discuss the value chain of smart cities in action, from representatives from the governments like Cheston, from a visioning of how smart cities is a means to achieve economic development, a means to bring society together, to Johnny, how does he translate that vision into execution? And last but not least, Lars, as an industry player, how can industry participate in the opportunities of smart cities? So without further ado, let me first introduce and welcome Cheston to say a few words about his entity and his vision, for the China-Singapore Guangzhou Knowledge City.
Good evening, Alvin, my dear panel fellows, dear friends. Cheston from the Study Committee of China-Singapore Knowledge City, and I'm pleased to be here to share my vision of the Knowledge City and also our expectation for the smart cities projects of our Knowledge City. The Knowledge City actually is a strategic collaboration projects between Singapore and China, dated back to 2010. So we have spent almost 10 years to develop this less developed area filled with fish ponds and paddy fields in the past into a modern city, which will be driven by innovation and also to be driven by the knowledge economy. And during the past 10 years, we had very pleasant collaboration with Singapore side because we regard Singapore as the most innovative country in the world. And we have drawn lots of experience from Singapore in terms of the urban planning, city construction, scientific innovation, and also, most importantly, the smart city concept. We used to employ IDAI, and now it's the MDA, to develop a smart city conceptual master plan for our city. And we have been executed this plan closely. And we have been nominated as the first batch of China as the smart city pilot zone. And so we have spent lots of money into the hardware, that is the infrastructure construction for the smart city. And now we are also with the completion of those hardware, and now we have pay more attention to the attraction of the industry sectors into the city. And we have introduced the Apollo of Baidu, and also the Alibaba, which is the industrial internet left into our city. And we have also put the auto-wise, that is the sanitation vehicles into operation around our Fengfang Lake. And we had, after the first phase development in joint collaboration with Singapore side, that is the CapitaLand, we are now starting our second phase construction. And we have a total area of 2 square kilometers area that we need to build from nothing. And we think there's much more potentials for business, and especially the smart technology they apply into the smart homes, smart transportation, smart buildings, and even the smart park. And we will see, actually, as a government side, we will provide a very favorable and competitive incentive for those business that are going to enter into our city. And also, as we are the strategic collaboration project with Singapore, and we had the collaboration mechanism from the State Council down to the ministries, and even to the province and the city side. So we can apply for the special policies that can drive these smart cities projects. And so we hope that with the application of the 5G and the others like cloud computing technologies, as we can attract more and more business, and also can create a more sense of happiness, safety, and harmony to our citizens here in the city. So we are looking forward to the collaboration with you all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cheston. Hi, everyone. I'm Johnny, and I'm actually from the Housing and Development Board of Singapore, or HDB for short. We are actually under the Ministry of National Development. And I'd like to thank the organizers, give me a great opportunity to share with you what HDB has been doing to drive this future living in our heartlands. Maybe a little bit of history of HDB. For HDB, we were actually formed in the 1960s. Essentially, it's to solve the housing problem that Singapore had at that time, because most Singaporeans were staying in squatter conditions. I think we have moved a long way. And today, happy to say that we have built more than 1 million flats, housing more than 80% of the Singapore population, with 90% of them owning their flats. But this journey has not completed. We continue to look for new ways to drive better living for our residents and also quality housing. And in recent times, we are looking at how we can do better in enhancing sustainability in our housing estates and using smart technology to help us. So when we talk about sustainability, like most cities, everyone wants to be an eco-city. For HDB, back in 2011, we were quite serious about it, and we drew up what we call as a HDB Sustainable Development Framework. And as you can see in this slide, this framework covers the 3 dimensions of sustainability: environmental, social, and economics. With clear initiatives drawn out for each town, we work towards achieving KPIs that's linked to the Singapore Sustainability Blueprint. And we have been using this framework for the planning of all our towns. With the advancement in technology, especially in the infocom sector, we see great opportunities to see how we can harness smart technology to help stretch the targets that we've set for our sustainability framework. That was in 2014, we drew up what we call as a smart town framework, as you can see. Many people came to us with many ideas during that time on what sort of smart solution we should be actually introducing in our towns. So we grouped them into 5 dimensions: smart planning, smart environment, smart estate, smart living, and smart community. And we also have a horizontal that ties all these smart solutions together. We recognize the fact that we must do the mapping of the sensors and the deployment correctly, have a clear strategy on our connectivity framework, and also see how we can draw all this data back to a data hub for analytics so as we can exploit technology in order to see how to drive the sustainability in a bigger way. But when we can do all these things and know what we're going to try out, nothing beats having space that we can test all these solutions in an integrated manner. That's the reason why we have identified what we call as living labs in our towns to test this out. We have that in brownfield sites like Yuhua and Teki, and new HDB towns like Punggol and Tengah to try some of these solutions. So maybe I zoom in on Yuhua, which is a brownfield site with developments built during the 1980s. Here we move in and try out a series of smart solutions. Because we have living residents, we have worked very closely to engage them. But it paid off because they gave us very good feedback on how to improve and tweak the solutions so that they are more acceptable and receptive to the residents, and of course more cost effective. We also tried it in Teki, and from our test bidding, we identified a few initiatives that we could actually replicate for the whole of Singapore. Thus, early this year, we have actually announced a very ambitious program called the Green Town Program, where over a 10-year period, we intend to introduce quite a number of green features that looks into reducing energy consumption in our towns, saving more water in our towns, and also addressing urban heat island effects. What's more important then is that when we have the new towns, they present excellent opportunities for us, because in new towns, greenfield sites, what we have is that we can plan and also design the features right at the planning stage. Zooming in on a special project that we have in one of the districts known as Punggol North Shore, we actually had our architects and engineers introduce and incorporate many smart initiatives right at the design stage. Happy to share that the flats will be handed over to the residents end of this year and also the beginning of next year, and we look forward to it. Tengah is a newer town, and we are positioned to be a biophilic, smart, and sustainable forest town of tomorrow. Here, whatever that works for us in Punggol, we'll be introducing in Tengah. Much more, we're already in collaboration with quite a number of our business partners to see if there are even more ideas that can help us make our towns even greener. The journey continues, but the mantra remains the same. We want our residents to live well, live smart, and live connected. So with that, I thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Alvin, big thanks for having me on the panel, and Cheston and Johnny, big thanks for that perfect segue into the industry pitch. So looking from an industry side to what has happened over the last decades in the market, I would describe the trend as follows. The people of this planet, our citizens, have been used to living in an on-demand world. So basically what you do is you take your mobile phone and you order on demand your transportation, your taxi or goods from the internet. What will happen in the next decade is this on-demand world will change into, as we call it, an ahead of demand world. So our infrastructure anticipates and automates the world around us. It anticipates Lars is coming home, what is the favorite temperature in his house that he likes to have, what is the climate outside, and how do we adjust, these type of things. What that means for the industry is that there will be, that's the analyst estimations, about 50 billion of these smart connected devices, from smart speakers, smart thermostats, smart vehicles around us by 2025. Or in other words, every person on this planet is operating more than 10 of these smart connected devices towards the end of this decade. Now, what that means for smart cities is, of course, it will dramatically change the way how people live. So the way how we have our flats and houses arranged, and it will dramatically change the way how we get transported and how our goods going to reach us, so how our goods are transported. And what I see in the smart cities around the globe, and my hometown Hamburg being one of those, is of course a lot of test beds, a lot of activities coming up, going into smart transportation test beds. And on the infrastructure side, it is a lot of work to be done on how do we make the infrastructure knowing what is going on in the environment, having car to infrastructure, communication test beds running. Singapore, one of my spearheading test beds there for V2X communication over the last years. Having autonomous transport test beds. So in context of the ITS World Congresses, of course, how do we have autonomous buses, electric driven, sustainable buses, and how overall do we manage cities, traffic flows in cities in a way that we can completely avoid congestion, that everything is reaching in a very predictable way from A to B. So that is the one big thing that we are seeing. On the other side, what we are seeing, it's of course the steering of the infrastructure, the housing in itself. How do you have seamless access control? How do I take the barriers away for people? You don't need to have your keys in your pocket anymore. We up integrate your keys via ultra wideband technology into your mobile phone. So car access, ticketing in subways, in buses, or your front door access of your house, all not needed anymore in future. You are living in your digital bubble, so your favorite sound, your favorite light, your favorite is following you as you are walking across the building, across your flat. Electric, sustainable driving and transport. One of the key topics, including the charging infrastructure, the billing infrastructure that we need to have for that. Contactless payment, of course, a key topic during the pandemics. You don't want to touch cash or pin pads anymore. You want to have mobile payment, and you get close to the payment terminal. All of the rest is barrier free. So one of the key drivers, and of course, Cheston and Johnny have just shown how big their, in brackets, test beds are, how big their projects are that they are running. That will all be projects that need to anticipate infrastructure build up in a way that we optimally reduce barriers for the inhabitants, and that we make life as smooth and as plannable as possible, because that will be resource saving, that will increase the functional safety, and the security. So in other words, that will increase the trust in your environment. And only a trustworthy environment is an environment that people want to live in. So the segue into cities of the future, into an environment of the future, will be aware, context-aware infrastructures that anticipate and that are trustworthy. And that is, of course, a fantastic playground for us as industry players. And by the way, why am I saying this? Well, because this is, of course, $1 billion, a hundreds of $1 billion market in the end, and a fantastic economic driver for all of us globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheston, Johnny, and Lars for the exciting presentations. And what I take away from your sharing, although it's just 5 minutes, but it's a whirlwind tour of the possibilities of smart cities from the government perspective, from a planner's perspective, as well as from a technology perspective. Let me now pose a question, right? All of you have your respective domains and roles in the value chain of the smart cities. If I am able to ask Lars, for example, having heard what you just said about this being $1 billion industries or multi-billion dollar industries, how would it and what would it take for industry like yours to grow in cities that Cheston is building, that Johnny is retrofitting and building?
Yeah, Alvin, thanks. Very, very good question. And I mean, for me as a techie, of course, what is driving me is always the wish to be with my new developments as quickly as possible in a test field where we can experiment with what we have. And I give you some examples. Of course, having electric vehicle charging infrastructure, well networked, well equipped, that ideally is planned before the concrete is put into the ground. If we have traffic lights networked via V2X, that is super simple and pretty cheap from an electronics content in it, nevertheless needs, of course, good overall planning to say where and how are we network the infrastructure with each other. Plus things that we are working on at the moment that might be interesting markets in the next 10 years. How do we, for example, work with drones in our cities? How do we do goods deliveries? I guess Cheston and Johnny get worried when I say I'm flying 10 million parcels to every balcony in the city. So how do we optimally set up an infrastructure, delivery points, delivery stations, dispatching of goods that we might even with bigger drones fly across the city and accelerate transportation, medication transport, and all of these type of things. So sitting together with these cross-functional teams, the city planners and the electronic techies, and talk with each other, brainstorm with each other how the best setup of such a smart city could look like. This is what I'm longing for. And then saying, okay, here are the smart spaces for smart parking. This is the electronics that we could provide, learning from each other and experimenting together. That is one of the key needs that we have to bring the different markets together into one area.
Lars, can I just clarify, do you mean that this co-innovation process, it is not just about the governments telling you that this is an area I'm interested in, but to also go to specify even before that request for proposals is done about what are the possibilities, and then you will then
Yes.
stitch that together.
I give you one example. I mean, if the governments tell me, Lars, we have enough infrastructure here to get, for example, intelligent street lighting into place. You can equip every street lamp with Wi-Fi or car-to-car communication, or with contactless payment and a charging. I mean, with these type of degrees of freedom playing, then the answer from the technical side can be very, very fast what is possible or what we better should not do because certain technical electronics capabilities are not there. Making each other understand and working on specific use cases that might be allowed by a legislation or that might have to have support from legislators or from the city planners. I mean, this cross-functional work, that is typically what is slowing us down today technically, if we were in an unconstrained world, we could be much, much faster than the world really turns at the moment.
Thank you, Lars. Johnny, you have implemented many system innovative ideas. Any comments to what Lars has just shared?
No, actually, I agree fully with Lars because I think this effort on co-creation is very important. In fact, many of the ideas that we have implemented in our towns, it didn't come from us. It actually involves a lot of sitting down together with many of our business partners, including the private sector, to brainstorm and to see what actually we can bring into our towns. And of course, for us, what we try to do is to throw up challenge statements and also let them know what our residents are really looking out for. Because the last thing you want is that you're introducing all this smart technology because of the sexiness of the technology, but not really what the technology is supposed to help make the lives of our citizens better. Now, for example, maybe I give you a good example is that when we first started out and people start telling us that, hey, you must make smart homes for the residents. So what is smart homes? Then they say, oh, you're going to put smart lighting, you're going to put smart kettle, you're going to put smart fridge, and a whole series of things. But the real thing is that for a setup like HDB, we should not be dictating what the residents should actually have in their homes. But what we should do is to work with our partners to see what they can bring in, and we do the infrastructure to make it easy for them to introduce their smart solutions into the homes. So that's why we look at things like a smart socket or even fiber connection and that sort of thing, so that smart technology don't have to be difficult for residents to adopt. Now, for our common areas, the municipal, that is a little bit more tricky. And we actually have a lot of conversations with the industry partners because we want to make sure that when we introduce the technology, it doesn't cause us problems in the future. So we need to future-proof it. We need to make sure that the systems is in such a way that it can be upgraded easily and it can also receive other sort of solutions from many other players. So these are the things that, which I agree fully with us, that there's a lot of conversation needed. There's a lot of engagement needed. Yeah.
Thank you, Johnny. Justin, on your side, how will you respond to Lars and Johnny, and where the opportunities you see for yourself in building a new cities?
I think we have very good points from both Lars and Johnny, and I agree that actually the smart cities project program to the city actually is a full cycle and get to be integrated different parts of the road, from the planner, from the designers, and also from the industry player. And we, as a city planner, we need to know what is our aim, our target. And when we made the decision, I think before that, we need to listen closely to our citizens, what they need. Maybe they need to reduce the traffic jam. And also we need to talk to our enterprises, the companies, what they need to upgrade to make their business growth better. Maybe they need that. We need an environment which much more ease to do business. So first of all, I think we need to make a right decisions. As in a few years, maybe 3 to 5 years, in a short term, a long term, what we need to change for the city. Also, in the long run, of course, we need to look forward with a projection to 10 or 20 years. What I mean is that when we decide what sort of technology, there's a lot of technologies outside. Do we need the latest, the most updates? I don't think so. We need the technology that can solve the problem and to really satisfy and the requirements from the citizens, and both the citizens and the industry players and the business. So, for example, say in our North City, now we have a lot of projects under construction. There's a lot of traffic for the marked trucks, because a lot of mud to dig up on the ground. We need to transport outside the city to dump that, and so they will drop the mud on the road. So in this case, how we solve the problem. We don't have so many hands, so many labor force, to look around and to do the surveillance 24 hours around the clock, because those mark truck, they are very tricky, and usually they can only go out at night when we all work. So, and in this case, we need a sort of a solution from the smart transport. We got the cameras, and to do those surveillance for us instead of the labor force, the human labor force, and those are the things actually also have the technology should the problems should be the problem targets, and also with when we choose what sort of technology we need, we also we look at the cost. What sort of technology can be most cost effective? So that is in another way, we need to also to create an environment fair and open and environment for doing business. We need to choose, we need to compare with the technology provider from both domestic and abroad. But for some areas, actually, there will be some limitation for entry. For instance, like the smart governance, we are trying to do a smarter government, but those sort of smarter governments, they involve in some sensitive data. So in this case, I think that there will be, say, less opportunity for the companies from abroad. And so in this case, we need to justify it, and how we can choose. And so I agree with Larson and Johnny that maybe we also need a complete legislation, and we need to work out the rules of the smart city in terms of the city planner when they for their decision making, and also for the entry of the industry.
Thank you. I think thank you, Cheston, Johnny, and Lars. These are very interesting questions, and I'm glad that you have answered them in a very inclusive manner. And I can see that, despite the three of you in different parts of the value chain, the goals towards smart cities, you also understand where are the challenges, and there are many opportunities. And I hope that we can build on these questions and the answers provided by the three distinguished panelists here. And I'm ready to now take the questions from the floor. Please send us your questions, and I will invite my fellow panelists to answer them as much as they can. Take advantage of the opportunity to ask questions to these very distinguished and experienced panels. Thank you.